All right, this is a screencast for setting up Turnitin.com and also talking about embedded quotes. So first off, you'll want to go to, of course, Turnitin.com so that you can set up being in our class. If you've never used Turnitin.com, then you want to go over here and you want to create an account and just click on that and follow the instructions using your email address and hopefully your current login. If you already have Turnitin.com, you're going to want to use your email address and your regular password to get in, and you can see, your emails, your school address, your login, LPS, and then your 6-digit code. Once you are in, you'll want to join a class, and so of course I have your class codes for all of our hours, 2nd, 5th, 6th, and 7th, so put in the appropriate class code, and then the password for all of the classes is ZAVOS, and you don't need to capitalize that. So once you do that and you are in the class, then you'll be able to, when the time comes, upload your paper electronically onto Turnitin.com for the appropriate paper that we're writing, which will be the compare and contrast. Now, on to embedded quotes, which is what we're talking about today in class. Embedded quotes, to embed something, is to put it inside something else. So if you took a nail and you smashed it into a wall, the nail is now embedded into the wall. And embedded quotes means that we take a quote and we put it inside your own sentence. And we're going to look at some examples of that. Young writers tend to struggle with using direct quotes. They want to simply find a quote that suits their purpose and plug it into their paper as an additional sentence, which sometimes can work, but most of the time it doesn't work as well. Why should students work to embed or place quotes inside their own sentences? There are two reasons. One is flow. The author of the quote wrote in a different style than you. But if you can connect that quote to your own sentence, you're going to create a sense of flow in the paper. It's also going to allow you to give context to the quote. Who said it? When was it said? What was it about? What did it mean? All of those things can give context to a quote, and by leading in or out of the quote, or both, within your own sentence, can create a much stronger piece for the reader. So we're going to look at an example that has serious room for improvement. And you can see here in red the example, the quote, Roger with a sense of delirious abandonment leaned all of his weight on the lever. It's properly cited, but it's simply its own sentence. There's no context. And so because of that, the quote doesn't work very well. If we look at another example of the same quote, and this has room for improvement, but it's a little better. There are bad kids on the island. One of them is Roger. He drops a boulder on Piggy and kills him. Roger, with a sense of delirious abandonment, leaned all of his weight on the lever. This caused Piggy's death. Again, no flow. There's a little bit more context, but it doesn't really work all that well. So here is a possible revision for those first two. In The Lord of the Flies, the truest form of wickedness on the island is evident in Roger. He demonstrates his true depravity when, quote, with a sense of delirious abandonment, he leaned all of his weight on the lever. Well aware of Piggy's place beneath him, Roger willingly takes Piggy's life. And we can see that I haven't used all of the quote, and in fact I added the he in here, and you can see I use these brackets to let the audience know that I've added that in so that they know that I'm talking about Roger. But much more flow, and there's context leading into the quote itself. Another possible revision. Roger's murder of Piggy clearly illustrates the depths children can sink to without appropriate supervision. As he stood high above Piggy on the mountain, quote, Roger with a sense of delirious abandonment leaned all of his weight on the lever. His willingness to welcome the moment with delirious abandonment clearly demonstrates the level of pleasure that Roger received by committing this horrific act. Again, as he stood high above Piggy on the mountain, Roger, that part flows so much better into the quote, and it also gives us some context of where he was, leading into the information from The Lord of the Flies. And so the key thing that I want you to remember in any of this is that when you are embedding a quote. When you are embedding that quote into your own text, that you work to use some or all of it, lead into it or lean out of it. Remember, use a comma before the quote when leading in. If you're leading out of it, the comma would come right here or here, and then the rest of your sentence would follow that quote.